Nailed it. Hello, welcome back to Skyrocket Automotive, and welcome to the second episode of Saturday Club. Where do I start? I'm glad that I genuinely make these on a Saturday, because it gives me a chance to drink in the week and think about what I'm going to talk about. I've got a couple of talking points. I am actually on the way out the door to go to a customer, but I need to take a minute. The first thing I'm going to talk about, I think hopefully you'll find this interesting or informative, or at least it will give you something to think about, is MOTs in classic cars particularly. Yes, modern MOTs and modern emission tests for modern vehicles are a bit ridiculous. From a safety aspect, I will never disagree with the idea of an MOT test. So, further to that point, and why am I bringing it up? I've just taken a customer's vehicle for an MOT. I will not mention which one. That car was on the road with an MOT. It's a beautiful car. It drives beautifully. Now, I've done a lot of work on it. Can't go too far into detail, but it had all manner of vibrations and steering issues, and so I did loads and loads and loads and loads and loads and loads and loads of work on it. Looked through the MOT history for things to look out for, and there's a couple of bits. I sort of eyeballed it, but I always believe take the car to an MOT and let it fail organically, because if you go belt and braces focusing just on front brakes, you're going to spend money hand over fist and time hand over fist that didn't really need spending for them to then find something else. We knew 100% that the bits I did on it needed doing. I took it in for an MOT today, and the drive over there, it was such a feeling of true success. It drove so nicely. And then we got it there, and it needed a couple of bits. All natty little bits, the brake light had popped on the way over there, stuff like that. And then the MOT inspector, who I trust implicitly, I've used them for many years, I use them because I can trust them, gets the approved tool out, just starts bopping along the floor pan, gets to the sills, and it went thump, 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 thump. This thing's got a body kit on it and a plastic, so you've got the body kit sort of comes around down the sill and under, there's a lip, then there's a plastic cover. Now the whole car is undersealed underneath with black underseal, including these plastic covers, so they look like the sills. But you go along with the tool, and there was this awful crispy noise. And as I'm sure many of you are aware, MOT inspectors aren't allowed to remove anything. They're only allowed to inspect what they can see visually and they can access with their tools. Safety is my chief concern, and I heard that, and I'm like, nope, I want to know. And we looked underneath it. It's got no sills in it. Rotten. I don't know how that wasn't spotted on the previous MOT, nor am I going to cast any aspersions as to why it wasn't spotted. It's easily missed if you're just doing a visual inspection, because it does look like a piece of the sill is there and present. That had to have been rotting away for years. I'd be very surprised if it was any shorter of a period of time than that. I've got cars that have been sitting around outside with no protection on them, with body kits, that have been under rain, snow, sleet, parked them up without washing them because, well, colour. And you maybe get a hole. This was a length of the sill like that, just didn't exist anymore. So, what am I rabbiting on about? Get on with it, Kyle. The exemption is handy, but it's still your responsibility to make sure the vehicle's roadworthy. And the best way to do that is to just put it in for an MOT. It's 50 quid a year. You're going to dump 800 quid on wheels, but you're not going to chuck 50 quid in to find out if your car's dangerous or not. Just so happens this vehicle had to have an MOT. It's more on the tail end of the vehicles I work on. I'm not talking about the Mini, by the way. It's on the tail end of the vehicle ages that I work on. Quite high mileage, it's done well, and it's a very nice car. It's not a piece of shit. It looks lovely. From above, from the sides, from underneath, it looks fine. You take it to an MOT station, and now we know. And I actually found it quite distressing, because if I'd missed that and something had have happened outside of what the ramifications would have been for the owner, which don't bear thinking about, It would have changed my life forever as well. I wouldn't have been able to live with myself if something had happened because I hadn't spotted something. And this car was on the road, right as rain. It's just in for a, let's see what else other bits it needs before you have it back. So when I take a car that's been in a field for 25 years, Alvin, you can bet your bottom dollar that thing's going for an MOT. So just food for thought. I'm not giving you a lecture about it. I don't want to get into the politics of it. I don't do politics on this channel, or I try not to do politics in person, but something to consider. With all the various bans based on emissions and things like that that are going on at the moment, the last thing people who aren't into classic cars, who just want those old bangers off the road, the last thing they need is some ammunition and a run of unsafe vehicles on the road causing accidents. Just food for thought. That's my opinion on it. You're welcome to your opinion. I'm not going to argue with you, but this is my house. Right, enough doom and gloom. What am I going to talk to you about today? I don't necessarily have a part from a vehicle to show you, and that's not what Saturday Club's about anyway. It's meant to be quite open-ended. I wanted to talk to you about lateral thinking. This is supposed to be a confidence builder, I'm not patronising anybody. I wanted to explain from the perspective of somebody who does this for a job that not replacing parts is a perfectly solid way to repair vehicles. I far prefer fixing what's there than entrusting the reliability of this vehicle from this point forward on modern aftermarket parts, which are not made to the same standards as they were back in the day, normally made with bad materials, cheap materials, out of spec materials, as we discovered with the sunroof video. What I'm trying to say is cars are quite an organic thing. They are like people or animals. They get unhealthy. And I've had a good number of customers, more so recently, that just want me to put parts on stuff. This is the problem. Oh, can we get a new one? Yeah, we can. But it's Chinese made. Well, yeah, they're only 60 quid. Because they're shit. You put one of them on there and throw this original part away, you're going to be putting one of those parts on every 8 months from now on, or we can rebuild it. Case in point is the Mini. That video is coming, start of the week. I'm nearly done editing it. It's just been a bear of a week this week. We could have thrown an O2 sensor in it. We could have changed the cat. We could have thrown a new injector module on it. All sorts of stuff. We could have thrown a coolant temp sensor on it, which I diagnosed. Successful diagnosis, by the way. Well, that was most of the problem. Most of the problem. That temp sensor failed for a reason, and I found out why. You'll see it in the video. But for anybody that doesn't watch these, they'll find out in that video. And if you guys find out in this video what the problem was, then it will just give you something to laugh at when I'm trying to figure out what the problem is. We put a coolant temp sensor in it. The old one tested bad, new one tested good. Put a temp sensor in it. The gauge, after the vehicle got up to full operating temperature, came just above the cold, which is the best it had ever done. But still not good enough, is it? So I had a look around the cooling system and I'm thinking, this cooling system keeps going brown. It's disgusting. Anyway, the new temp sensor couldn't do its job the same way as the old temp sensor couldn't, because the coolant channel was blocked. Now, we needed to put a sensor in it, 100%. I stand by that diagnosis. However, had that sensor not failed, and this is you and you need to get to work, all you would have needed to do was clear that coolant channel out. If your sensor's working, and it's not getting enough coolant, it's going to read cold. If you blow it through and it now can get coolant, it's going to read hot again. You've just fixed your car for the sum total of $3.99. There is something to be admired in repairing the problem. And I've come across mechanics in the past, in the recent past actually, that take a very arrogant view of vehicle diagnosis. Oh, it'll be that. How do you know? You've not even seen the vehicle. Do you know what it's doing? Have you listened to it? What other ancillary stuff is wrong with it? And they will talk the customer into spending £600 or £700 on all these magical parts, and they'll throw them at it, and the problem's still there. Oh, it'll be this then. There's another £200 part, plus the labour to fit it, and the problem's still there. And they continue to talk at the customer and nickel and dime them to death until the customer gets really, really angry. And that's how they get a reputation. That's how we get a reputation. There's memes out there on the internet about mechanics ripping people off. It's that mentality. So what I'm trying to say to you is, lateral thinking is far more important than being able to change parts half the time. If you can just ascertain what's actually happening, your quid's in already. So for example, that temp sensor is about 15 quid, clearing the line out, and there's a lot of labour involved in the other bits because the car gave a lot of problems. But what I'm trying to say is, I could have told him his ECU had a problem. Seen that before. I've seen that a lot of times before. Other mechanics. Oh, it must be the ECU then. That temp sensor tests good, the wiring tests good, so the next thing in the line is the ECU. What about before the coolant temp sensor? What about that? Oh, it's a blockage in the cooling system. Unblock it. The reason I always rabbit on at you guys as to how something works is because I like the idea that I'm helping people to understand why. Because once you understand why, you then know what to look for when that's not happening. I feel this hasn't been a satisfying enough sandwich for you guys. I need more filling. So what I'm probably going to do is go off and have a look at this MGB and come back. I need to drink that now because I will take a swig of it later and that'll be a bad scene. I'll see you guys in a few. Hello, it's a little bit later in the day. Excuse the door in the background, it's the wind. We're having a big storm at the moment. I'm holed up in my garage. I didn't go back to the unit today. I ended up chatting with the customer of the MGB. Lovely old boy. He's got an absolutely breathtaking split screen camper, and it really is a nice one. It's an honest to God, just a straight, normal split screen camper that he built himself about 35 years ago, and he's done a lovely job of it, and it's a sweetheart. It just occasionally needs the odd bit doing to it, and he likes to work on his own stuff, but every now and again he just hits a snag with stuff, and that's when he rings me. So it's a nice relationship. Gave me a call about this MGB. So it had been parked up for a while. It started, was coughing and banging real bad. Sort of cleared. He limped it to the MOT station where it spluttered out and packed up on the lift. They wheeled it out. He got it home. Refused to start. And this is another situation where we were able to fix the problem without buying anything. The only cost incurred currently is my time. And the parts we need are incidental and cheap, and I'll explain that in a moment. So went out, and the customer, because like I say, he's au fait, he knows what he's doing. He diagnosed it as having no spark, which is a pretty fair shout. It's clearly got fuel pump's clickety clacking away and then turning off, which initially we were worried that it might be a voltage issue, but strong battery voltage at the pump. It's just reaching pressure, and then because the engine wasn't starting, there was no demand for fuel, so it was just staying primed and not really making any noise. That's fine. So first step, I got a spark tester. It's a clear red plastic thing, and you plug the HT lead in at the top, and the bottom plugs onto the spark plug. And you might have seen it in the storm video. You crank on the engine, as the spark passes through to the spark plug, it excites this little filament. Woof, woof, woof. Interestingly, we had spark. Take the spark plug out, which is what he did. Take the spark plug out, HT lead on, earth it against the engine, nothing. Weird. Not completely weird, but a bit odd. So I had a look at the plug, and it was really sooty. So we cleaned it up as best we could, slapped it all back in, nothing. Still dead. Distributor cap off, points ignition on that. Distributor cap off, crank it on the engine. Weak yellow spark, but the points were moving. Okay, we'll adjust the points. Adjusted the points. Strong blue spark. Brilliant. Put it back on. Spark plug has a really good spark. Brilliant. Lovely. Threw the spark plugs in. Nothing. Now, this is where people then, like Matey Boy, who's a real person, I will mention no names, scumbag, would have gone, coil. I want a coil. And then it would have been, oh, it must be leads then. No, I refuse to do that until I'm absolutely certain. Anyway, starts looking around and then thought, let's go for our steps. What happens before the points? Where do we need to be? The distributor needs to be timed up correctly. If we know anything from the storm video, we know that it's possible for distributors to go in the wrong way. However, this ran and drove to the MOT station. It wasn't happy about it, but it did. And you could attribute that to just some stale fuel and like the car not being happy about it. You could definitely attribute that to being stale fuel. No two ways about it. But it's dead. Let's check. Rolls the engine round to top dead center. Did it old school because the way the MGBs are set up, it's tricky to get a tool down between the radiator. This era of MGB, it's tricky to get a tool down there. I don't like sort of like weaving around, because you can kink radiator fins, and so just gently rolled it around. Got my hand under the pulley and rolled it around by hand. Screwdriver in the spark plug hole. Let it get up to top dead center, and it will come to the top. And at the point where the pulley carries on turning slightly, but the screwdriver stops moving, there's your top dead center. Trace number 1 spark plug lead back to the distributor cap. There's number 1. Just oh, perfect, actually. There's number 1. We've got number 1 top dead center. There's our number 1 HT lead coming out of the distributor cap, and the rotor arm's over here. Like, not even lined up 180 out. And again, this engine ran. That's strange. I thought, right, I'll have a smoke and a think. While I'm doing that, take all the plugs out, clean all the plugs, put the plugs back in, and then I was like, right, okay, cool. We know the points gap set correctly. We've got a spark, but it's not happening at the right time. What's going on with this? I grabbed hold of the distributor, which is sat down at an angle in the block like that, and turned it freely. Previous mechanic hadn't tightened the clamp down, so it had sat there running and rotated itself around as the engine had heated up. I presume that the clamp, already loose, had expanded slightly, which has allowed the dizzy to slacken off, and it had rotated round. It would have gone massively advanced first and been popping and banging through the intake shortly before, then spluttering and dying. Put the distributor around as close as I could get it, because the distributor is not clocked correctly. Very much like the Scirocco, the distributor doesn't care which way it's pointing. The vacuum advance does, because it can hit stuff, and this hits the starter. You move the timing round, it would just get to the point where it was sort of right, it's in the ballpark, and that's when it then contacted the starter motor. So our range of tuning is out. We can fix that, that's fine. I'll sort that out. Put the dizzy cap back on, pulled the choke out, and it literally went pug boom. Sat there running on 3 cylinders, which makes sense. The plugs are really sooty and the fuel's really stale. So I think what happened there with the sooty plugs is that the old petrol burns, but it burns very slowly, slower than fuel normally does burn. And it's an inefficient burn, and you get lots of smoke. And that smoke, mixed with the heat from the combustion, cakes itself onto the spark plugs, and that's how you end up with sooty plugs. And eventually they get so sooty that you've got your electrode. Have I got a spark plug? Surely I've got a spark plug. Don't look at the mess. As it gets sooty, obviously the spark needs to travel from here to here. It cakes up so much that it's like putting a piece of rubber over the electrode. Eventually it becomes an insulator and it doesn't spark. Problem solved. I left the owner chuffed to bits that we'd figured it out, with the advice that when it comes to me, because it's coming to me for brakes anyway, when it comes to me, we're going to do a tune-up, we're going to do the leads, because there was a couple of little mice nibbles in the leads. They're fine at the moment, but eventually that will break down and crack and start leaking. It's stupid not to do it now, because it's just going to leave it at the side of the road. We'll slap some plugs in it, because those ones are really sooty. That's it. The inside of the distributor is all basically brand new. Just leave it alone. It's fine. And if after a tune-up the carburetors don't come around, he's going to put a load of fresh fuel in it, because it's only got about a eighth of a tank at the moment. So if he fills it now, he can mix in the old fuel with the fresh fuel, and it will clear itself through and run nicely. And if it doesn't at that point, then we can look at rebuilding the carburetors, because they've been sat, they might have some varnish in them, but not until we know whether we fix the problem or not. Yeah, so I know this hasn't been a... Jesus, that door's really moving. I know this hasn't been a here's how you disassemble this component, but I hope it's still been helpful or interesting, and in some way gets you wanting to have a crack at it. I had a really, really wonderful comment from somebody, the sunroof video I think it was. They'd been putting off doing their sunroof for ages, because it was like really intimidating, and the video gave them the sort of, oh, I'm going to have a go at that. And that's wonderful. That's why I'm here. I'm certainly not doing it for the money, am I? Let's be honest. I also am definitely not doing it so that I can have lots of time chilling out in the evenings. I do it because it's fun, and I get a real kick out of knowing that it helps people if it helps them. If it doesn't help you, sorry, maybe it'll help on the next video. But right, I'm going to turn this noisy machine back on. Ready for takeoff. I edit all my videos on this thing. I'm settling into it. It gets frustrating every now and again, but I'm settling into it. All right, cool. I hope this was a little bit more filling in your Saturday Club sandwich. Oh, there's a good t-shirt. Saturday Club, but it's a sandwich. Food for thought. Ah, food for thought. No, that's enough, Kyle. Stop it. Thank you very much for watching. As always, if you're still watching now, thank you very much for watching to the end. It means the world to me to know that people are interested enough to listen to this idiot rabbit on. And yeah, I very much look forward to seeing you again in the future. Cheers.